Good morning, everybody. Can you all hear me out there?
Good morning. Yes,
All right, all right,
you
all
changed my
right.
name.
Are we back into real estate mode? Did we get our fix in for Labor Day? Anybody want to share a good Labor Day story? Did we have some fun? Did we put a deal together? We're starting off low energy. Come on, who's got something? What happened over Labor Day? Nobody. Holy moly. Well, I'll tell you what happened in the real estate world. They had a bunch of stuff, some controversial stuff that we're going to hit on today. But the first topic that I have for you guys, I think is just super, super relevant. And I keep hearing about the following, which is house isn't moving and my seller is thinking about renting it. And I just think this is something that can get kind of scary for sellers that are just, oh yeah, I'll just rent it for a year and we'll sell it next year when the market's a little bit better. If you aren't an experienced landlord, and depending on the state that you are trying to do this in, I think this is really, really risky business. So does anybody have a client right now that's kind of thinking about doing this? They're kind of, hey, it's not moving. Margaretta.
Morning, all. Yeah, actually, it's so funny. It's a past client, and she actually calls me last night, all frantic, and it's like, oh my God, I have this house, and she was thinking of selling it a few years back when the market was really high, and now she's like, well, I converted into, it's like a raised rents in Chicopee. I converted it into daycare. What a disaster that was. And now I'm like thinking maybe renting it like short term for nurses type of thing. She's in medical profession. And she's like, well, I don't know what to do. I'm spending all this money on this house. And as I'm like kind of listening to her, I'm like, it's obviously challenging to be a landlord. It's like, she's trying to do something, but I don't think necessarily the skill set is there maybe for her. It's totally different ball of wax. And, she's like either sell or keep doing this, but it's a very hard thing to kind of deal with that kind of situation for people or individuals. Like what is the best way to go forward with all that? I mean, it almost sounds to me like she really needs to sell the house because the expenses with the property is just getting to her. I don't know. What are your thoughts on all that?
I mean, I think this is clearly, it's an individual by individual decision, right? There's not a blanket, hey, this is what you should do. I would say though, in general, with my experience and people in this situation over the years, if you've never been a landlord before, doing it this one time for a year until the market gets better or something when I can sell it next year, I just think is a recipe for disaster for most people. I mean, I think the first thing that you got to look at is just what even is the rental profitability? Are you even going to break even on what you need for mortgage and other expenses that you're going to need to take care of for this tenant over the 12-month period?
Well,
Right.
that's the
So,
thing because she's like thinking, oh, I have 5 rooms I can rent out short term, but like nurses. But the problem with that, okay, what's the what's going to be your really rental proportions? Like you said, are you going to rent 2 rooms consistently? Are you sitting on 3 other ones? Are you going to be really at capacity with the rental? I don't see it. Especially she's not very savvy, with internet and where to post this sort of thing. And maybe even, I'm not sure if the demand is there. Anybody who's doing like short-term rentals, what are you seeing for that?
anybody want to comment? Has anybody thrown something up where the seller couldn't sell and they've decided to just try and rent it? Any situation? Go ahead, Marin.
It really depends on the area. Like I know a few people who purchase and do short-term rentals
like in the Springfield area, and I didn't think there really was that big of a market, and they're pretty rented out. So, but like you said, it does depend on the individual. Um, Somebody who's brand new to the game, especially with short-term rentals, I don't think they realize how much work is involved with cleaning and everything else. So that's something, everything you got to keep in mind when saying things like that. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, okay, I've decided to rent it. How long is it going to take before I get the tenant in there? Am I going to lose a month or two of the property just sitting vacant? Right? Is the tenant going to pay? Right? Are they going to pay for a couple of months? Are they going to pay for 6 months, for 9 months? Am I dealing with trying to get them out at the end? Right? The costs of hiring an attorney and doing an eviction. This is on top of, whatever damage they've done to the property, because I can promise you it's not going to be kept for most renters in the same condition that you would have kept it. So even if they pay for the 12 months, right, now when they move out, we've got to clean it. We might need to put a fresh coat of paint on it. We might need to make some repairs. So even if there was some profit over that time, do we retain that profit, or does it go back into the property? Anybody else want to just chat anything else regarding situation of, hey, I'm thinking about renting it? We haven't even covered, okay, are they in state? Are they out of state? When you get the call late at night that the plumbing's working or the electricity's out, or do they have a handyman? Are you the agent going to become their go-to? What is the compensation structure for something like that? Do you want to be a property manager? Anybody want to kind of just throw some topics out? What have you seen? What have you done? What other questions do you have? Tell you another situation that comes up is the insurance, right? You're going to pay more for insurance. Have they factored that in? Right? This is no longer being used as a primary residence. Once it becomes rental property, right? There's a bigger risk for the insurance company. So there's a lot to think about. So you need to be able to express these things to the potential seller / potential landlord if you've got a listing and they are thinking about I'm just going to rent it, right? I mean, they can, but I can promise you it's probably going to be more of a headache for most people than it is to just bite the bullet, drop the price, get the property sold. Stephanie's asking about capital gains. So capital gains is only if you were to sell the property. Okay, so when we talk about capital gains, we talk about taxes. Right, this is one of the beautiful things that we have on our primary residence. Is you can make a gain of up to $250 per person, $500,000 for a household. If it then becomes rental property, right, and you are using the property as rental property, and then you go to sell it, right? So you'd have to be more than 5 years of doing this, I believe. It'd have to be, I think you have to be your primary residence for 2 out of the past 5 years to be able to not pay the capital gains. So once it goes beyond that, right, you're also talking about capital gains when you sell it. So great point, Stephanie. Martin.
Did they switch the how much you can do on capital gains, or they're going to switch that they're increasing it? Or am I thinking wrong? Something else.
Anybody up on the taxes? Did they switch something with the capital gains? I feel like I remember something along this too that was coming. I don't think it was in play just yet. Maybe somebody can do a quick chat GPT to see if something switched on the 250 or the 500, or if it may have gone up a little bit. All right, next thing I had for you guys this morning, it'd be interesting to see what the thoughts are here. So Texas has instituted a new law, and I guess Florida has something pretty similar to this. New Texas law, SB 17, effective this week. bans citizens and businesses from China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia from buying or leasing real property in the state for more than 1 year. Already facing legal challenges on grounds of discrimination and constitutionality, but obviously, thinking. I guess there's been some reports, and I don't know. I haven't gone too deep on this. Maybe somebody on the call has, with foreign countries buying up land and using it for, I guess the word would be spying or informational purposes. So I don't know if anybody's kind of read up on this, wanted to throw it out there and see if anybody's got any information or has any thoughts regarding this. So I guess Florida did something likewise in 2023. I think it was just a complete ban. This Texas one just says you can't do it for a lot longer than 1 year on a lease or purchase. Anybody have any thoughts? And I guess the law also in Texas says that they can change the countries. So it's an open law where you could add, if they feel that another country has become a foreign concern, that they can add another country to that list and ban those people. So nobody has any strong thoughts on this stuff. I don't know. It's definitely getting kind of crazy out there with the AI and the spying. I just listened to, what was the guy's name? I don't know, but it was on one of the podcasts that I like. They were FBI secret agents. It was a couple that were in a foreign country trying to gain counterintelligence for the United States. Is pretty interesting on how deep our country and others are going with regards to getting information. Basically setting up businesses in these countries that appear to be, and even are, real businesses making a profit. But some of them are complete just fronts. And this goes on. I think they were undercover as a couple in a foreign country for over a decade, where they are actually encouraged to marry within the FBI. Because if the amount of lying that they would have to do to a spouse about what they are doing and when they are doing it has just been notorious for causing destruction of relationships. So when you are in these highly secretive organizations, you are actually encouraged to marry within the system. Martin.
I know Canada, it's for them, they do it like, so they don't have more foreign investments. Like if you're an American, even you can't buy like you can buy more rural if it's more, a congested metropolitan area. They don't allow outside investors to buy a second home.
So I was not aware of that. Yeah,
one of my clients was from Canada. He told me, that's all.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, who knows where the right way to do it is, but I definitely think there are national security concerns for sure, especially after listening to that podcast on the amount of data that they're able to collect when they set up these businesses or they tap the phone lines or your phones. They basically said on this, I don't care what password you have on your phone or what system that you are using. They're like, we can get into it. Literally through an airport scanner, if necessary. So the different governments can basically, if you ever get pulled aside and said, so if they had some concern about somebody, you would get to the airport, you'd get up, we're going to need to search the bag. That bag goes through some sort of scan, and they can literally pull electronic information off of your laptop, off of your phones. It was kind of crazy, the technology that is out there. But they basically said, the average consumer shouldn't be really concerned because they're like, we don't have time to go after everybody's stuff. But if you are, on our short list, we're going to get your information, is the bottom line. So I hope everybody out there is operating at this point that your information is not private anymore, regardless of whatever passwords that you have on it. If somebody needs to get it, they're going to get it. Any other thoughts, questions, concerns regarding the land stuff? I was looking for more discussion on this one. We're going to stir the pot. All right. What else do I have for you guys? We can do our What the Hell Is That segment. Let me see if I can share this up. We'll get a big prize out to the first person who can tell us what that is. Come on.
You mainly see them on commercial properties.
Looks like a tar roof, but
Close.
Any other guesses? Come on. It is a bad Wednesday. All right, that's a rubber roof. I'm gonna ask the group, what do you think the benefits of a rubber roof are?
Justin.
I would say it had something to do with weather, maybe somewhere where some of these places are that they need like a little extra layer of protection.
That's one of them. Great job. Superior weather resistance.
How
Doug,
about
can you
something
expand?
to do with heat, maybe?
What was that? I'm sorry.
Something to do with heat, maybe?
Yes, depending on the color. If it's black, it holds in the heat. If it's white, it holds in the cold. So
Is it extremely wind resistant?
it's extremely weather resistant, like we talked about.
He said wind.
Oh, wind. I think that would go with the severe weather resistance because it's durable across the country, no matter what the weather. Okay, we only got 7 more. I only got 4 minutes left. All right, I'm going to run through these. Number 1 is outstanding durability and longevity. These will last up to 20 to 50 years with proper installation and maintenance. Superior weather, we talked about. Excellent waterproofing properties, if installed correctly with the seams. It's very cost-effective installation because you can put it right over the existing roofing material as long as it's still in decent shape. So that saves a lot of time and money. Low maintenance requirements. Energy efficient benefits. We talked about that. Environmentally friendly option. Most or a lot of these contain recycled materials, which is great. And they're easy to repair. One of the major downsides is it's not aesthetically pleasing as of yet, but you can get you can order specific colors, and some companies are coming out with about 5 or 6 colors, like brown, tan, green, 1 or 2 more. And so those are going to be standard colors, which will help. And what I also found interesting, and this will get into aesthetics, but you can do it on peaked roofs, which is pretty great. But then again, you got to worry about the aesthetics. So any questions on rubber roofing?
Is this basically your only option when you have the flat roof for like these industrial buildings, or what else will you see out there on
Oh God,
commercial buildings?
asphalt, a lot of asphalt with gravel. That's these two are the primary roofs that I've seen. But I don't deal with commercial roofs, so often.
And you're
Any
seeing
other
this,
questions on that?
you're seeing this on residential properties?
This is the first one I've seen, Steve. So
Okay.
it just came in yesterday. So it was a good time to kind of look at it for me. But it's interesting. And if a client has a flat roof and they have roof issues, you might as well have them take a look at this, especially if it's cheaper, going to last longer, environmentally safe, all of the above.
But in your picture, though, that was a flat section roof. You haven't seen it yet on a pitched roof.
I'll send it around. I just actually looked at the peak question about 10 minutes before because I was just curious. But what I also wanted to look at was whether you can put this on and then put regular tile or whatever on top of it, which would be interesting. So I'll send out a bit more information and some pictures for everybody.
Nicole.
I actually had a rubber roof on my house before we redid and peaked our roof. And it was really good, and everyone said it was going to last forever. The problem was we did have a leak, and because it's a flat roof, it's spider webs, so it ended up leaking in basically every single room of our house, even though we only had one little pinhole up in the roof that was leaking. But it just kind of spider webs out and spreads throughout your house because it's not peaked, so it isn't going straight down.
Yeah, they said one of the issues at installation is you have to really focus on the seams. So it sounds like maybe they didn't in that one area. But yeah,
No, I think it was already like 20 years old, and
okay.
the guy that came out to fix it said it was most likely something hit. It was damaged, so it was either like a branch or something fell on it. But you don't know it's there until it like literally starts leaking in every room of your house. At least that's what happened to us. So we needed to get an upstairs on anyway, so we peaked our roof. And obviously we don't have rubber anymore, but for the first 6 or 7 years we were there, it was great. And we had people come out and look at it and said it would probably last us another 20 years, but it just happened to get this one little pinhole in it somehow.
That's great feedback.
All right, next topic I had for you guys was a offer technology called Final Offer. I had actually never heard of this. Just came up in one of the articles that I was reading, but it actually started. The beta was launched here in Massachusetts. So I was curious if anybody here has used this product. So they beta in 2022. They launched the end of 2022 in DC, Maryland, Virginia. April of 23, official launch in New England. And now they have just moved out to Texas in 2025. So anybody on the call had a listing that had Final Offer as the way to submit your offer? Anybody been through a process? Okay. So the key features are, you could do like buy it now. There's full transparency. There's deadlines. So it's very similar to, I think, what you see with some of these auction sites for the REO stuff. You don't have to use the buy it now feature, but there's just a little bit more transparency. Kind of the benefits are when you've got multiple when you believe it's going to be a multiple offer situation, that's probably going to be good where you can easily counter a group of people, only a couple of offers. So it's just a product that can make the speed, the clarity, the transparency for the listing agent and for the buyer's agents on a property. Some of the cons, obviously, is you're kind of giving away, especially if you don't necessarily have a property that's going to move quickly, some of the negotiation strategies that you might be able to use. I think the increased transparency can actually hurt you. And then you have the problem with adoption, right? So nobody on this call has even used the product yet. It's been out since 2022. So when you're trying to get offers in, and agents can get frustrated with new technology and how to use it, so it actually could hurt or slow things down. But just figured I'd throw it out there with the hopes that somebody's used it. It could give us some real-time feedback. It can integrate with the MLSs. It's got different levels of integration, but definitely seems to be gaining some traction here. So wanted to see if we could chat about it. Margareta.
On the subject of offers, I guess I haven't been to on Zillow as much recently, but I've noticed that Zillow has something like with like if you go with Zillow, there's like a different price. You guys know what that is all about? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
So like when you go on Zillow, there's like, they give you like a range of prices that they think the house is worth. But for some reason they like bump it if by like 5 or 10K if they like listed with Zillow somehow or with Zillow something.
No, I think what you're talking about is just Zillow is kind of saying what they think would be a competitive offer, or what would be a decent offer, or what would be a lowball offer. So I think that's all that is it's just telling buyers, hey, right? So this is a tool actually for a buyer's agent. If your buyer wanted to come in pretty low on a property, be like, hey, I'm just taking a look at the Zillow stats here, and it's saying where we want to come in, our chance of getting accepted offer is only like 10%. Whereas if we could get it up to this price range, it might be 50 or 60%. And then at the highest one, hey, you're likely to win the offer here based on other offers and other properties that have come to market. I think that's what you're talking about. But it's not there's one price if you buy through Zillow or a different one.
Yeah, something like that. That's a new thing. How long they had that? Is that a new thing or?
Yeah, it's just been out a few months, I think. I'm sure in some markets they roll these things out. They beta in some markets before they go regional, and then they'll go national with it. So I don't even know if that is nationally available. I know for sure it's not even available in every market. So they will not put their suggested offer prices or likelihood of winning the offer on a rural property or something that's pretty unique where they don't have enough data to suggest what they think would be low ball, might win, or most likely to win, right? But if you got a 3-bedroom ranch in Springfield, they've got the data, and they can say, hey, look, if you're in this range for this listing, you're probably not going to win. But if you were to go up to this price, you probably are going to win.
I was pretty impressed with that because it looked like it was quite accurate.
Yeah. I think when they've got the data, it is going to be accurate. Anybody else want to comment on that feature or any other thoughts about that product that Zillow has?
No, just kind of circling back to what you said, Steve. It's honestly a really powerful tool if you have one of those buyers that just wants to lowball every offer and thinks that they're still going to get it somehow because back 10 years ago or 20 years ago when their parents bought their house, they were able to negotiate, and it's just a good tool. A lot of consumers trust Zillow. So if you can pull that up and show them that this is coming from Zillow, it's not coming from me as the agent trying to get my commission up or anything like that, it is a really good tool.
I mean, basically, with our Zillow team that we run, the guidance that was given to us is to just, when you're struggling, when you've got a buyer that is strong, that wants to win, and they're struggling with the pricing, to just send them the link. Just be like, hey, I know you said you really want to get this one, but here's what the data is suggesting. All right. What else do we have? Is Lauren with us this morning? So Lauren is not on right now, but she had brought to my attention just a little bit of a concern with agents working with clients and not getting them to a lender. having a couple of scenarios where we are, running around buyers, showing them properties, not getting stern enough initially with conversations. And then after, probably too many hours into a client, realizing you get them to the lender and they can't get pre-approved. Right. So affordability right now is definitely a concern. And, it's just a reminder to you guys, like, we really got to have these financing questions up front. Maybe you're going to go out for a showing or a day of showings, but anything more than that, just to get belly to belly, we always recommend that. You want to pick up new clients, you got to get belly to belly and meet these people and start to educate them on the process. But you've got to be a professional, drive the bus, and get them to a lender earlier than ever, I think, at this point, because affordability right now is pretty tough, and a lot of people are going to be tight on their numbers. I don't know if anybody else wants to share around that topic. Nicole?
I was just going to say with this as well.
We lost you, Nicole.
Because whether the rates go up or down, it is going to impact what they're pre-approved. Oh, can you hear me?
Yep, you're back.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I don't know how much you guys heard, but when rates are adjusted, whether it's up or down, just make sure, even if they're pre-approved, to reach out to the lender to see how that impacts what they're pre-approved for.
Yeah, some of these pre-approvals are so tight, an eighth of a point, a quarter of a point change in interest rate. It might not affect their ability to buy, but it's definitely going to affect their price point, right? And you guys know, if you're showing houses at 400,000 and then all of a sudden you got to go to 350, they're going to be pretty disappointed in what they see. That 50,000 is going to be a lot less of house and quality, etc. Let's see here. We had another situation come up. We haven't really talked about this too much. What are the options for a seller? And we'll talk about this from the buy side as well. So I'm a seller. I accept an offer. Buyer says that they are going to back out if we don't do X, Y, and Z. Seller does not want to do X, Y, and Z. So now we are trying to get a release and termination to get out of this contract with this buyer, but we don't have anything signed from the buyer. The release and termination has not been signed, but all indications are that the buyer is going to back out, and seller is getting antsy. They want the property back on the market. They want to start remarketing the property. What is your understanding of what can be done at that point? Can we put it back on the market? Can we start marketing to new buyers? Nobody afraid to, or everybody's afraid to answer the question. Well, here, legally, you've got a contract, right? That buyer still has the legal right to that property until that release and termination is signed, right? And so where the seller is exposing themselves here and where you could run into problems is buyer tells you today, we're out, we're done, we're not moving forward. Right? You remarket the property, and 2 days later, no signed release or termination. They've slept on it. They've talked to a couple other people. Are you kidding? You guys are going to back out of that deal at that price? Right? Oh, wait. We still want to move forward with the house. Right? So this is the concern, is people change their minds all the time. So from my point of view, if everything appears to be that the buyer is moving out and we're just waiting on a signature, I don't see an issue with coming back to market with the disclosure that this is pending a release and termination signed by that buyer. Right? So we can't misrepresent the property. Any potential new people that are looking at the property need full disclosure of what the current situation is. But you could have a situation where the buyer is just not in a position to sign. They're out of the country. They're out of the area. Who knows what? And you don't want to lose a week or two. I get it as a seller. So I think that's how you can best handle that situation. Just make sure the right disclosures are out there. And the same thing kind of goes from the buy side, right? You are representing a buyer. Buyer makes an offer. We've got ourselves a deal. We do inspections, and we want to back out for inspections. Okay. You believe that you are within your contingency period. Seller does not believe that you are within the contingency period. They're not letting you out of the contract. They won't sign the release, right? And your buyers want to move on. I don't see any issues with moving on. Nobody's going to force you to buy that. Your buyer just needs to understand that they may not get that full deposit back, or they may get a portion of that deposit back. Right? So just make sure you're having the conversation. I think it's okay to move forward. But if you're going to go make a deposit on another property and you're expecting the deposit that you just put down on property one to be back in your bank account, you might have an issue. So does anybody have any questions around either one of these scenarios? Okay. So the other thing, and this is just because of the market, we haven't seen too much of this, is kick-out clauses. What are they? What's the other word for that in Connecticut? It's got a different word. I can't think of it. Somebody help me out. What's it called in Connecticut?
It's called the Hubbard Clause.
Hubbard. Thank you. So this is a clause that says, hey, we accept your offer, right? We'll move forward with you, but we reserve the right to go with another offer if a better offer comes in, right? Or, hey, we reserve the right to go with any other offer. Doesn't even have to be better than your offer if another offer comes in. And typically what you're going to see this is when the buyer has another property to sell. When the buyer has another property to sell. So, hey, we love this offer. We don't love the fact that you've got this house to sell. We'll accept it. But if another offer comes in and it's better than yours and they still have a house to sell, we want the right to go with that. We might think their situation of selling their house is better. Or you could write it up such that, hey, we can only accept another offer if they don't have a house to sell. But at the end of the day, you can write these up however you want. So you could write up a regular no house to sell on the buyer. You guys got to remember, you can put anything into these contracts. Hey, we'll go with your offer, but we reserve the right to go with any other offer at any time, up until whatever, a week before, 2 weeks before, maybe you put a date on it. Now, is the buyer going to go for that? I don't know. Right? Depends on who's got the leverage in the negotiations, but definitely we see a lot in our internal chat channels, agents asking questions. Hey, how would you write this up? How would you write that up? And I think, a good place to start, especially if you're in an offer state where you're going to go to purchase and sale after, is just use ChatGPT for this stuff, right? If you want to put subject to legal review or something like that, but to just get your thoughts out there, it's pretty good at cleaning up your thoughts. And then the other thing that I think it's getting really good at is suggesting, did you think about this? What about that? Right? What about these little extra things? Well, what type of an offer can kick me out of the clause? Does it have to be better than mine? Do they not have to have a house to sell? So it might make some other suggestions, some additional terms that you can put into these. And I'm not suggesting that we act as attorneys, right? So, but if you want to just try and get some stuff down and then run it by the attorney, I think it's a great place to start. You can get some really clean language. Anyone have any thoughts on that? Anybody use any language unique lately that, or see something in an offer that would be just a good share? Hey, I saw this on an offer. I used this. Chat recommended that. Hadn't seen it before. I'm going to need some throat lozenges today. I am just talking more than normal. Hey, Katie Sheehan. How are you? You in a position to unmute? we can chat about your little situation. Maybe not.
There we go. Can you guys
There
hear
we
me?
go.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. I saw you pop on, and I thought we'd just change gears a little bit here. I know your issue ended up resolving itself,
Yes.
but if you could just kind of take everybody through that easement issue that you had, just to so people understand kind of what things can happen and then how they can resolve themselves.
Sure. So we actually had a closing and it was in June and it was a new construction build. We had, the survey and we had the plan, but it was in a cul-de-sac that had one of those circles in the middle. So the property lines, you're not looking at really a square because it's coming off of a circle. So all of the property lines kind of came in at a point and at like a narrower point and then would kind of open up in a semicircle outside to fill in that circle of the cul-de-sac. So the property lines were awkward. They were a little bit wonky. The property that we sold, the buyer had a conversation with the seller who was the developer, and they had said, there is an easement that goes along the back, and I think it was about a 10-foot easement, and it was for utility poles. So telephone, telegraph, electrical, they're going to make sure that they keep that easement so they can maintain those poles that are along that line. So part of the property that our buyer bought was also on the other side of this easement. So the builder had said, yeah, as long as you don't interrupt in the easement and, create any issue so that when the workers come in to fix the poles that they can't access, or you can't put a fence on the easement or something like that. It's there, you can use the land, you can build on it as long as it doesn't affect the easement and they can still do the job. They're not going to have an issue with it. So he did decide that he wanted to put in a road. And when he put it in, the neighbor had actually built a fence, and they built their fence to about 2 to 3 feet before the easement started, because you can't put a fence on an easement because if you block out that space, now you're causing an issue. So when our buyer built his fence, or built his road rather, he assumed the fence was the end of their property line, even though, we had given him all of the information, we gave him the survey, he knew where his property lines were, he knew the footage, exactly how far it had to go. And he accidentally built the road so that it curved around out of his land over the easement that crossed the neighbor's land. So try to picture it like you've got a diagonal line that cuts across your property, because again, those property lines were not straight squares, they were coming off at an angle because it started as a circle. So you've got kind of a zag, like a zigzag into his land, and he looped around the fence and then built on. So he crossed over a good portion of the neighbor's land. Even though it was easement land, it was still the neighbor's owned easement land. And so the neighbor decided they wanted to sell the property, and the neighbor did not know that he had built that fence because they had been renting the property. So they were not aware. The renters were just like, oh, it's outside of the fence, it must be theirs, no big deal. But it was not. And so I got a notice from an attorney who was, representing them in the sale of their property. And he said, basically, I know you in the area, I've worked with you before. We're about to, send an injunction and a cease and desist because your client who bought the property is crossing over my client's land on a daily basis and has now built a fence over, or built a road over it, and they are using it as their own, and it's lowering the property value of his client. So, they were on the verge, they hadn't reached out to him yet, but the first thing they were going to do was go legal injunction and stop all of it. So I said, absolutely, I'll reach out and let me check the notes. And, I gave him a call, and I said, client, it looks like I've seen pictures and I've looked at the property lines. And while I haven't been out there to measure, it does look like you built a road over your neighbor's land. And he got very defensive. The builders told me I could put the road in. I said, yeah, absolutely, you can, but you can't put it on your neighbor's land. Just because it's easement land doesn't mean it's yours. So I had to first ascertain, did he know that he put it over their land and just didn't care? Or did he get an okay from them to do it and then they backed away and said no? Or was he just honestly not aware? Was it an honest mistake? So, he's sending me, property line surveys and pictures. And I'm like, yes, I understand. But what I'm telling you is the fence is not the end of the property line. The fence stops before the easement because you're not supposed to build fences on easements. And he was like, I'm going home and I'm going to measure. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Now the picture that was sent to us because the neighbor, when they had their pictures taken, they did drone shots to show everything. And so they had a very clear picture of this road, of this driveway extension that came off of his driveway and then just looped and crossed straight into their land. And you could see it very clearly. So I sent him the pictures and I said, from what I'm seeing, this does appear that you are on their land. So he, went home, he got very defensive about it and he was very upset. And I'm like, I'm not trying to attack you. I'm just trying to understand, is this the case? And if not, we need to work something else out because they're on the verge of selling the property and they're about to, take legal action. So he goes out, he, measures the tape and it did resolve itself because he measured and he was like, you're right, I'm 40 feet off and it does cross over. Luckily, it was not a paved, extension to the driveway that he put in. It was just packed dirt and gravel. So the paving, he set it up, the paving company is going to come back out and they're going to you're going to break up the road basically and move it back onto his land so that it stays where it's supposed to be. So in the end, there's nothing, it didn't need to go into an injunction, but the things that we were looking at to try to solve it, if he had said, no, like this is actually a paved road and it's too much for me to break it up and then move it, it was going to, the neighbors were asking for almost $10,000 for an easement to allow him to pass and repass on that piece of land. And even though it was an easement and you're not supposed to have fences and all that on easement, the easement continuation does not mean you can go onto the neighbor's land where that easement is. So that, it did resolve itself pretty simply, which was a very, usually those are very messy. So it actually handled itself pretty succinctly and he was very apologetic and felt bad. So it's getting taken care of. But that was, I was preparing for a massive legal battle, like getting ready for this. Cause I was like, if he's put a paved road in, this is going to be a major takedown to repair it. And he may need to buy out that piece of land, that easement from the neighbor.
Any questions on easements, roads, fences while we're on this topic? All right, good little update. Love the little things that we run into in the real estate world.
It gets funky.
It gets funky. You never know what you're gonna see. All right, what do you got? 10 minutes left, guys. I think one of the things that I wanted to cover today, we don't usually put stuff up here from the close, but they put together something that I thought was pretty good. And Margareta, did you have a question on the easements?
Not so much of the easements, but it just came to me. I was talking to somebody, and since we have Katie on the phone, I'm curious to hear her opinion on this. There's two properties next to each other. There's people smoking pot on their yard. The neighbor's complaining. So they said, okay, we'll smoke on the other side of the house so it's not interfering with your smells of it. So they've actually doing it now on the other side of the house outside. The neighbor's still complaining. Now they're actually threatening a lawsuit. And I looked into this and I'm like, it says something about that it's actually potentially some lawsuit was recently won because it's like interfering with their enjoyment of their property. Is that a real thing? Like, that blows my mind. I mean, we know pot is legal now.
So yeah, interfering with my enjoyment of the property, that's a very real thing. One of the major, benefits to property ownership is that you have the right to quiet enjoyment of your property. So if they can prove that that is substantial enough, and that's what it's going to come down to if they try to file a lawsuit in the courts, is it substantial enough cause that can have their property? So it would have to be a pretty substantial level. I think if they were to file a suit, just the fact that the neighbors said, oh, we're so sorry, it is legal. And this is, kind of something that people have to deal with nowadays. The fact that they did move to the other side of the house to try to make it better is definitely going to be in their favor. And most likely a court is going to, not do anything with it. It probably would, if it even gets to that point, I would assume it would get thrown out at that point, unless they could, if they could show some, they're doing bonfires of it and it's affecting us on a massive daily basis. We're having a secondary high from it and we shouldn't be doing it, things like that. It would not prove.
I might want to move there. Who's with me? Thank you so much. I'll let him know.
That's an interesting one. I definitely feel like I've been in plenty of places where it's interfering with my enjoyment of the space that I am in. So, Margareta, keep us posted on that one. All right, what I was going to try and get to prior to that, the Close put out a must-attend real estate conferences and events for 2025. But obviously, these are annual events. And I just thought it was a good time. We've never really taken a look at this. I'm going to just kind of put something up on the screen here.
We lost you, Steve.
Back. Yeah. So up on the screen, I'm just sharing, and you could message me if you can't see it, great. But they have a national and a regional kind of event breakdown. And I just think it is good to get outside of your local market. I mean, I'm trying to bring you guys on this call as much as I can of what's going on, both locally, regionally, and nationally. But getting to some of these conferences, I think, is a really good way to sharpen the saw and just get some R&R as well. You can get out of the area, turn it into a little bit of a vacation. But I thought they did a pretty good job of some of the national conferences that exist. Your own brokerages typically have their own national convention. Would highly recommend that you get to it at least once. Go to your own brokerage's national convention. But these are some really good ones. I've been to most of these at least once. I've been to the Tom Ferry Success Summit probably 10 times. I've been to the NAR National Convention 3 or 4 times. I've been to Inman. Some of these other ones I have not been to. So it was just interesting to take a look at. Like I said, they break it down regionally as well with some different events. So if you're looking for something, a reason to get away, I thought this was a good breakdown, probably the best, consolidated view of what's available for some of the bigger conferences. So anybody have any questions on the conferences, summits? All right. What did I have next? I'll finish up with the following, and actually, let's just get back to a share. They also put together this real estate marketing calendar and holiday guide. And I think you can get something pretty similar if you put it into ChatGPT and said, "Hey, look, I'm looking for some sort of a marketing calendar for the month, for the year, etc., with some good ideas on both kind of gift giving, whether it's pop buys or social media posts, etc." This one was just kind of interesting because they did some like lesser known holidays, and they had some pretty unique ideas in here as what you can do for marketing. And I wanted to also throw it out there because my plan for one of the topics was to talk about some of the client appreciation events that I've done over the years. I think we're just not seeing this as much anymore. People aren't getting together. And I think if you can pull off a couple client appreciation events, I think it's going to go a long way. And there's a couple of things that I wanted to kind of remind everybody on the client appreciation stuff. One of the best things about it is you can do all the planning, you can do all the invitations, you look at the numbers and go, man, if I invite these 100 people, man, this event's going to cost me an arm and a leg, right? But a lot of times, most of the people are so darn busy, they're not going to be able to come anyway, right? And just the fact that you're inviting them to the events is just a great little way to keep in touch, see what's going on, have some conversation. And if they do come, great. I mean, that's the whole point. I can't say I've done a client appreciation event over the years and not picked up a transaction from it. So some of the better ones that we've done that I think are fairly cost effective and still give you some time to shake hands, kiss the babies, but then maybe not have to be completely engaged for the whole event, would be the following. We've done the movie theater rent out, right? So this is typically a fixed cost. So it doesn't matter how many people show up. You know what your costs are going in. You pick something that is, kid friendly, so those with kids can come. You could. The other thing is, if you're feeling overwhelmed with, hey, this is going to cost so much, partner up. You could do it with another agent, 2 other agents, 3 other agents, 4 other agents, right? Do a bigger event. Hey, I only have 5 past clients. No problem. Find somebody else that's got 5 and somebody else that's got 5, and all of a sudden we're doing a nice little event, right? So there's no reason, well, I don't have that many past clients. Well, get together with other people and make it a bigger event. So the movie theater thing has been great. Just small little things like we've done like Easter egg baskets. We had one of our agents actually dress up as the Easter Bunny, and you pass out some candies and some Easter type stuff. We've done invite everybody to a local farm for like this time of year, so they can do apple picking or pumpkin carving or hay rides. I haven't done this one, but I've seen some agents do it, which is like a suite at a local event. So, you could do a suite if you're here in New England for the Woo Sox game. You could do a suite at Gillette for a soccer game or a football game or something like that. So where you can have an area, you're going to have a fixed cost, and you can invite a lot of different people to it. So just want to kind of throw those ideas out there. I don't know if anybody else has done something recently that you're like, hey, this was just a great client appreciation event. It didn't cost me an arm and a leg. It was easy to plan. Anybody want to throw something out that you've done? Just really think like these are the types of things. If you don't want to be just always working online leads, we've got to do a better job with working past clients. Margareta.
I actually been to an event. It was for a financial planner, and he did he actually projected a movie and gave popcorn and stuff. And I talked to the financial planner. It did result in some business for him. He was looking for new clients. So, I actually went to the movie myself, and I did talk to him. So it was somewhat beneficial. But if I can interject one more thing before we go, Caitlin, I know, is here. Another legal question. As of May, they're going to be sealing eviction records, or they already have done that for renters. Does that affect anything on the lending side? Like for, because now when you do credit checks, that's not coming up. What does that mean for purchases of a home and getting pre-approved? Any thoughts on that? Credit checks and how you vet a client?
I don't know that this is necessarily a question for Kate. I think it's more of a question for the lenders.
Lending.
Yeah, I think they were on, but I think they've jumped off. So we'll try and get you an answer. I personally don't. I don't see how that is going to affect the lending process at all.
Sorry about that, guys. I got kicked out. I'm back.
That's okay. The question was just around the new law that is going to seal eviction records, and whether that could potentially affect, A, we can talk quickly about the landlord situation, but then B, pre-approvals and mortgages.
So I have a feeling what we're going to end up seeing is, even though they're going to have maybe a new document, because you figure every document in a closing package is in there because someone got away with something and the lender had to close a loophole. So instead of being, a 1-page mortgage with a handshake, now it's, 200 pages of documents that we're signing, some of them feeling overlapping. So I don't know that in the beginnings of the process, because again, if the lender can't see it, it can't be considered against you. I don't know if it's going to turn into something where the lenders are asking, because we ask at closing a lot of questions. Have you had a bankruptcy, or are you in the process of divorce? And those are all things that could stop the closing in that moment. I don't know if they're going to end up doing an affidavit up front and saying, can you confirm if you've had an eviction, or, I'm not even, to be honest, I'm not even sure if they're legally allowed to ask. I would have to really read into that new law and and the purpose and the intent behind it. That would be the only thing that I could think of that would make a change for it. But then I'm sure there's going to be something, an affidavit in at least the closing package, where someone signs off saying that, they're not currently, under in the process of an eviction, or that they weren't in a process of eviction when the process for the purchase started. But I don't know that that would really affect the lending side as far as getting, actually getting the loan, because if they can't view it, if they can't see it, you can't act on what you don't know.
Well, I think that the purpose of the law is for the landlords and tenants, for tenants really to have more of a fair chance that based on their current situation, current income. So if anything, now that you said that, I think it might probably help people buy, because it will improve their overall status almost. Because if they have like a good rental history, if they clean up their act and don't fall into any bad habits, it might actually be a positive thing, but I don't know. I guess I'm torn, so that's why I'm putting it out there. But thank you for that. More to think about.
I think you're very right. If the intent is, obviously the intent is so that, people who have an eviction on their record, they're not going to be banned from ever renting again, because that's a very difficult process to get past with the landlord.
What is that, like 6 or 7 record? 7 years on your record eviction?
It's really similar to a bankruptcy. Yeah. But I agree, if the intent for that, is to try to protect and get them into, be able to rent, I think it very likely could play over, and, it makes it easier for them to purchase. And if it doesn't show up, it's not going to affect them. Unless the law is specifically written to say, something, but this does need to be disclosed. Like, a record is sealed for as far as rentals, but if you are, putting in financial affidavits, then that needs to be disclosed. I would have to really look into it and read that law specifically.
Yeah, it's a new one, May something.
Yeah, I know that one was a new one. Same with the home inspections, which hopefully, Steve, I'd like to do on the home inspections on one of these calls.
Yeah, we'll definitely do the home inspections prior to it going live. And we'll have to maybe we'll dig a little bit deeper on the eviction thing, because I thought it's not just everybody's evictions are sealed. You have to meet certain criteria or something, and then it gets sealed or something, meaning like it's been X number of years, you've done all of these things. I want to say, because when I had first read about it, I was like, man, this is just brutal, because as a landlord, like to get somebody evicted out of their property in Massachusetts is extremely difficult, right? Like, you have really messed up as a tenant to get evicted out of your property, and like, that should be on your record. Like, if you've gone through all of that, the next landlord should know that you've been through that process. So I get giving everybody a fair chance, but the fact of how difficult it is. So I want to say that you had to meet certain criteria, and that I'm for, right? Hey, yes, that happened to me 3 years ago, but here's what I've done since. And I don't think people should be able to see that anymore. So I want to say that there was some criteria. So maybe we'll dig a little bit deeper into this next week.
And also, is it like in Connecticut or other states, or is it just Mass?
I thought this was a Massachusetts.
It's Mass, but I wonder if other states have adopted something similar.
Yeah. Let me see what I can dig up, Margaret, and we can talk about it next week.
Always fun.
Well, I appreciate you guys. I don't know what we got to do. Please reach out. We got to get these mics turned on for you guys. I definitely want this to be a little bit more interactive than it's been. So we'll have to figure out some ways to get you guys talking, because I know there's a lot of great knowledge in those minds. So, but appreciate you guys coming. Let's have ourselves a great week, and we will do it again next week. All right. Take care.